Hello, and welcome to the annual Write Hive conference. This year is packed with a ton of great sessions for writers, writing professionals, and the publishing industry. Write Hive is a nonprofit serving the writing community with free and inclusive resources, events, programming, connections, and more. The 2026 conference brings you this session on indie bookstores by Booksellers. Today we have Rae D'Arc. Rae D'Arc has been involved in every stage of a book's life, as a writer, editor, retailer, reader, and reviewer. She once worked 4 part-time jobs simultaneously. Thankfully, one of them actually paid her. She's the author of the Haunted Romance Trilogy, Dreaming Princesses series, and Dead and Back Again books, and the founder of Bursting Box Publishing. She received her bachelor's in English and now lives in Washington State with her husband and Aussie dog. Her latest release is Spirit of Suspense, Dead and Back Again number 2. Find out more at craedarc.com. Welcome, Rae.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
We also have Erica Rose Eberhart. Erica Rose Eberhart is a neurodivergent disabled writer of queer characters, dragons, girls who grow feathers, and boys who become trees. She grew up in the Catskills region of New York and spent many formative years in both eastern Pennsylvania and northern Virginia. She now resides with her family and cat in the Finger Lakes region of New York. A technical editor by trade, she has a master's degree in English and creative writing. Erica has written stories since she was able to write sentences and has found comfort in fantasy her entire life, whether by consuming fantastical stories or by creating her own. Besides the comfort of books, Erica adores nature walks, crocheting, embroidery, cats, baking, and autumn. Her debut novel, Tarnished, released in 2025. The Elder Tree Trilogy is her first published series. Find out more at ericaroseeberhart.com. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you both. And I am your host, Adria Bailton, reader, author, and fan of indie bookstores. So let's go ahead and jump in because this is on indie bookstores by Booksellers. And so the first question I have is your booksellers, or you have been booksellers. What have been your jobs at indie bookstores?
Well, currently I work at a queer woman-owned, author-owned bookstore, a small bookstore in Dryden, New York, and I work as the social media and event manager for the bookstore. So while I'm not directly selling books to customers, I'm often at the store or I'm part of events, so I'm gathering books from potential authors from the events and also propagating lists that we promote for different themed months or genres or what have you. But prior to this, many moons ago, I was a bookseller at the now defunct Borders and Walden Books. So I had a little bit of taste of both indie and the bigger box bookstores.
And I have been a section manager and minimum waging peon who does everything from ringing people up, unloading shipment, decorating sales tables, preparing and hosting events like author signings and Black Friday sales, driving bank deposits, answering phones, and mostly a wide range of customer service. Similar. I currently work at a licensed dealer of one of America's top 10 largest brick and mortar stores. So we are both indie and corporate. So it's kind of an interesting mix. And yeah, getting kind of a taste of both. But I also work as an author, pitching my books to indie bookstores. I work a lot with them as well. I just did 2 signings just last month. So yeah, I feel like I have a pretty wide range of experience and absolutely love working. I kind of call it my dream job, even though, writing is my dream job, but I love being surrounded by books, even when I go to work.
That's wonderful. Well, that's great. I'm glad we have both of you here to talk all about book selling at indie bookstores and also the author aspect when talking to indie bookstores, because we're going to go over both of those. And so actually, Rae, you talked about being both chain and corporate. So maybe you can start with, how are indie bookstores different from chain bookstores?
Independently owned bookstores typically are more niche. They only sell sci-fi fantasy or manga or college textbooks or local specific stories. They also dive all in to their genre typically. Like we have a local sci-fi fantasy bookstore that also sells legitimate movie props from Star Trek and swords, which you would never see in a Barnes and Noble. So like indie stores can be a little more specific, but then they are very into that.
I agree entirely that with indie bookstores, we're able to really dive into a specific area. And I think that there is a void that is filled for the areas that indie bookstores exist in. Where I'm at, we have a Barnes and Noble, we have a bunch of indie stores, but they all provide different services to the community. I live by an Ivy League, so a lot of the students will go and study at Barnes and Noble, but if they are looking for locally sourced snacks, locally sourced coffee, trinkets, crafts, things like that, or just events that are local, they can come to the indie bookstore that I work at, because that is our focus, is to provide a space to highlight locally sourced materials. And that is something that draws people. Well, like Rae had said, there are other bookstores in the area. There's one that is exclusive for fantasy and the like. So there's a little bit for everyone and for everyone's tastes. And what one bookstore may not work for one person, then they'll surely find a bookstore that works for them elsewhere. While the big corporate box stores tend to be very highlighter of the like what is popular right now, and you may have a harder time finding stuff that's more localized and produced within the state or the town or the county or whatever. And I think that that is just such a marvelous way to like bring notice to an area and really kind of appreciate an area by having that allowance and that focus.
Nice. So this is a great way to talk about like if you are trying to get in contact as an author with your local indie bookstore, what are the best ways to get into contact with indie bookstores?
So I personally deal with most of this for my bookstore, and I've also done this as well as an author. Every bookstore is different, and they all have different information that's probably available. I would encourage authors to first check out the bookstore's social media profiles and their website to get a taste of, is this a store that I want to carry my book? If you can't physically visit it yourself. And often, if there's going to be information about commission, there you can find it on their website. If not, it's always great to just go in and ask. I've had nothing but success going into bookstores myself as an author and just asking the booksellers. They're like, hey, I have a book and I would like to consider selling it. Some bookstores prefer to be offered a copy of that book right then and there so they could peruse it and decide whether or not it's something that they actually want to carry. Others will just, kind of guide you to a form, whether it's print out or online, for you to fill out. That's what our store does. Personally, we have people fill it out. And if people bring in copies of their books, we'll accept that as well and we'll check it out. But yeah, just like giving a call, just making face, reaching out is the best. I would say the thing to avoid would probably be emails, because that is the thing that I've had the most trouble with as an author, is reaching out to bookstores via email and asking. And I am certain that we've had that issue with our store as well, until we began to have an actual event form where people fill things out and they provide the information. But I'm sure there's interested authors who've emailed our general email address and it's just lost to the very, very full inbox. And I suspect that that's common with a lot of indie bookstores. So I would say go in person or call on the phone. If you see that their social media presence is really receptive and they respond to comments and stuff like that, I would go through that avenue as well if you can't physically bring yourself in. But that has always been the best success for me, and also seems to be the best success as the event and social media manager that I've seen in my position.
Yeah, if I can kind of piggyback on that and also share my own experience of, I do not like talking to people on the phone, but it really is the best and fastest way to get in contact and to get that information super quick of, do you buy from local authors or do you buy from indie authors? Yes, great. Let me talk to you. Can I talk to your book buyer or your inventory manager? And they say no. Great. You didn't waste your time driving over there and make things awkward of, here's my book that is definitely not going to fit in your store, or that, you know, yeah, definitely stalk them online to see if they will be a good fit for you. Because, like, as a minimum waging pawn who has no influence on what we carry in our store, it has happened far too often where somebody comes in, hands me their beautiful book, and says, "Can you stock this?" And I say, I can't do anything about this." And it's really tragic because I want to help them. I want to, and so I do actually refer them to other local bookstores. And so even if you get that no, saying no, we do not buy from local authors, or no, we do not carry your genre, ask them who might, because bookstores know other bookstores, and they know bookstores that might not be on Google yet, or just are too small for Google reviews or whatever. And so ask for those referrals, even if you get that no, because, yeah, there are a lot of niche indie stores where it's like, you have a fantastic horror poetry book that I would love to read, but this is a Christian bookstore where I'm sorry. It's just not going to be a good fit. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, ask for their book buyer or inventory manager. It's going to have a kind of different title depending on the store. Ask about their pricing markup, so you can determine if your book will even make a profit through their store. And then also ask to set up a book signing or an event, like, right away, so that way they have an excuse to stock your book, and then they also have the an opportunity to meet you and to see how you can work together. And events are a great way of helping each other. It's indies helping indies. I'm sure we'll talk more on that later.
No, that's wonderful. Those are great suggestions. Besides being in contact in order to, get your book stock, to have events and whatnot as an author, why is it important to support indie bookstores as an author or a reader?
Online shopping is taking over, and a lot of corporation bookstores are actually pushing for online shopping. It's dumb. I don't. People who work there are like, why are they doing this? They're cutting us out. And monopolies are overwhelming. We want to support locals. We want to support humans. We want to be able to build a community and not just give our money to some billionaire who we will never meet, but to, be able to encourage that community life, really. Bookstores and libraries are such gold mines for community events and bringing people together for educational reasons. And bookstores also can reach people who don't shop online, and it can also reach more locals. They can almost be passive sales, as you just drop off your books and let the sales people, clerks, sell your book. Some bookstores can order from Amazon, but they really don't like to. Last I heard, bookstores get a 28% discount from Amazon, but if they order your books through Ingram Sparks, they can get 30 to 55% off, which is why they don't like Amazon. But still, they don't want to support the corporations. Locals want to support locals. Like, I sell my books to my local bookstores personally. I buy my books with the author discount, and then I sell them to my local bookstores with the discounted rates so that they can sell them at discounted rates. And I can tell people, hey, go buy it at this local store because it'll be cheaper than even on Amazon.
I have found that indie bookstores are so worth supporting as an author, just because, as C. Rae was saying, community is such an important thing. When I first started hanging around a local bookstore here, I knew no one. I had moved here like right before COVID. I had a newborn. I was basically locked inside for years, it felt like. And so I never really was able to establish a sense of community here because we were so shuttered off and just trying to survive. But I found comfort. I struggle with meeting people, and I have my own disabilities that prevent me from really being out and doing a lot of things. So going to a bookstore was a safe space, and it was one that my body could handle and my brain could handle. And through going to the local bookstore, I was able to meet a ton of authors who live here, and I hadn't known lived here. Like, we were in rural upstate New York, and here, like, I was meeting all of these authors and like New York Times bestsellers and all of these people who were amazing, and they became my friends. And I was able to obtain that sense of community that I didn't have beforehand. And it's also just, it's been like this continuous snowball effect of joy. I feel that indie bookstores, people who go there love books. They love writing, they love reading. Whether they aren't a writer, but they like to consume books, or they're both, we all have this central love and this central connection by going to indie bookstores, and also a sense of community where we're saying, oh my goodness, this person lives near me and I'm able to support them. And that feels really good. But it's also, led to opportunities that I never really thought I would have beyond that, like local literary festivals and chances to speak at Ivy Leagues and things like that. And this stuff I had never foreseen, and I don't necessarily have the spoons to pursue on my own, but just being in this sense of community and being able to establish myself with other like-minded people who have the same interests just broaden my world. And the support is just, it's so genuine, and it feels good to be able to say, oh, I bought this book from a local author and I never heard of it until I went to this indie bookstore and I saw it and I read it and it was freaking amazing. And now I'm going to sit here and drink my coffee from like a local coffee roaster and eat a locally baked goodie, like it feels really good. And it's a wonderful way of getting back to the community, but also it's an opportunity for you to expand your world, and get to meet people that you may not have had the opportunity to meet otherwise.
Wonderful. So yeah, the sense of community seems to be a big through thread for reasons to support whether you're an author or a reader. Okay, so as the points of contact sometimes at your indie bookstore that you work at, what do you wish writers knew about what was I gonna say? What do you wish writers knew about indie bookstores?
I would there's a couple little things, and some of the things these points are also points that I thought these things as an author, and then I experienced them working in a store, and I was like, so um the compensation that, or like the discounted rates that indie bookstores get when they are ordering from the publisher, Ingram, Amazon, wherever, that is something that I still don't 100% understand, but I do see how it can really make a bookstore struggle. So I would not, I consider it kind of a gift if a bookstore is like, we would like to do consignment for your books. Because they are trying to figure out a way that they can make money, but also that you can make money. Um, and that is something I didn't fully understand. And I also just, I would often get frustrated in response times where I would send a question about an event or something like that, or request to do an event, and I wouldn't hear anything in what I deem is a reasonable time. But now working on the end of doing events, sometimes like we get just so overwhelmed by an event that's happening. My brain is perpetually a month ahead of where we're at mentally. I'm in June right now, and we're recording this in May. Like I never know what day it is since taking on this position. Um, but if people are, jumping in and they're like, I want to plan something from 3 months from now, that's good. It's good that you're getting into the system and you're getting your information in well ahead of time, but also the upcoming events take priority. And on the other hand of that, I would encourage authors to not wait to the last minute to request to do events. It's more likely that the bookstore will say no. It's more likely that they will have things scheduled that day. And if they do have the availability, at least on our end of things, I can't necessarily provide the right amount of social media promotion that you as an author deserve if it's too soon and there's not enough time for me to adequately plan things out. So I would just encourage authors to take that to heart, and just know that it's not a blow off or anything if you're not immediately hearing back, but it's a crazy on both ends.
To kind of go along that, it's nothing personal if your book is not accepted into their inventory. If they do accept indie or local authors and they just say, sorry, we don't want 20 copies of your book, because they have limited shelving space and they have even less space for storage. So it doesn't matter if your book is self, indie, or even traditionally published. If it doesn't sell, it's going to be tossed or returned. And that's one of the big problems with Ingram Sparks, of people getting their books returned and wondering why can't they just hold on to it? Because they only have so much space and they need to make more space for whatever season is coming up, like the holidays and just the things that come with the holidays.
So I want to visit two things that Erica said just as definitions for anybody who's not familiar. So you talked about consignment, Erica. Can either of you sort of just define that and describe it for anybody who might not know who's watching this?
My experience, I think every bookstore probably has a little bit of a different consignment process, but for ours, we have a very distinct list of what we allow to be in the store. Specific genres that we do not allow. We don't allow AI books or covers or art. So we have to have the author agree, essentially, that their books do not align with the things that we do not promote and we do not carry. So that is one part of the consignment process, is just kind of making sure that both the author and the bookstore align in what it is that they put out there. But also the consignment process, at least for us, is basically giving information about like who the author is, where a check will go, and what the titles of their books are and how many books they are giving to the store. So these are books that the author personally owns, like they bought it, they ordered it, they have copies of it, however that came across, and they are handing it over to the store on consignment. And the store's job is to sell those books. And when those books are all sold out, hopefully, then the author will get a lovely check for a certain, whatever the decided percentage is for the consignment. So if it's like, I don't know, I'm throwing numbers, 30%, you're getting 30% of what was profited for each book that was sold. And it's usually within bookstores. Again, they're all different. Some do quarterly, some do every 6 months, some do yearly. Some bookstores will just perpetually just hold on to your book until it's sold out, and either that's it, that's the end of the consignment, or they will reach out to you and say, hey, we sold out, we want more. Others will have a time frame. It could be maybe 6 months, and they'll, at the end of the 6 months, they'll go, okay, we haven't sold any of your books. It would be nice if you could come and pick them up now. So you're not losing out on any money, you're getting your books back. But it's usually like they will circle through a period where they check to see, is this book making us money or not? I've had really good sales at one bookstore, but the hardcover copies of some of the books didn't sell as well. So I went and I grabbed the hardcover, but they simultaneously asked me to bring in more paperback. So it's very kind of back and forth in that regard. You just, want to be upfront about what you have and what you can provide, and just kind of like let the bookstore determine how many copies they want. For our store personally, space is an issue. It's a very small bookstore, so we will take maybe 2 or 3 copies of a book, but whenever there's an event, I tell authors, I'm like, bring 10 copies. You're welcome to bring more. Keep them in the trunk of your car. If we happen to sell out at the event, you can run out to your car. We're not going to be like, nope, that's it. Everyone has to leave. They can't buy your books. But at the end, we might ask you to take extra copies home with you. Just, it's better to prepare and hope for a really great sales day than to not have enough.
Yeah. So a couple of my local stores, one of them, actually 2 of them, will buy your books right there with a markup price. So like one of them is 30%. So if I have a $10 book, for instance, they will buy it from me for $7. So that's what the markup is, so that they make a profit of $3 when they sell the book. But like, yeah, as Erica mentioned, different stores will have different options or have different ways that they have consignment. Another one of the stores that I work with, they do 60%. But if I'm doing an event, then they do 80%, because it's less of a risk for them to be purchasing the books that they're selling right there at the event. And so, because they're taking on a risk carrying your books and keeping it on their shelves where they have limited space. But then, yeah, other stores, you will get paid when they get paid. That's the consignment of, when they sell your book, they will send you a check for whatever the percentage was from the markup.
It reminded me of one other aspect that's, I think, worth knowing about. I've only encountered this once, but one of the stores that I have done consignments with, they will charge you a fee to consign with them initially. Unless you do an event with them, then that fee is waived. They don't expect you, it's like $25 or so, but they don't expect you to pay to get your books into the store. And I have yet to pay to have my books in that store, just because I'm like, all right, I'll do another event. That's fine. But that is one of the ways that bookstores will sometimes do. It's so varied, but it's also like really helpful to know, like, oh, okay, like this isn't weird. Other bookstores have done this. Like, even if this one that I've only had interactions with is different, this isn't out of the norm either.
Erica said early, but then, like, for me, I'm a I'm very, but when is early, right? Like, Erica said something about 3 months. So is it 3 months? Is that early, or 6 months, or is going in a whole year ahead of time if you know that much?
Unfortunately, this is again one of those things that I think it depends on the bookstore. And it also depends on the time of year. So if you are looking to plan an event in, say, January, you probably have more wiggle room. You could probably reach out in November or the beginning of December and not have much issue with scheduling something in January, because January is typically, at least in my area, it is typically a very slow season for books. It's a slow season for stores and in-store shopping. People just don't tend to go out as much. So there's more availability in terms of event planning. But if you are alternatively trying to schedule something between October and December, oh my goodness, please get far ahead of it. We were so inundated with event requests for October through December because, people are like getting into Halloween, or then they're planning the holidays and they want to get in with all the like festivity things. Plan ahead for that. If you have a queer book and you want to do something during June with Pride, reach out to your local bookstore well ahead just to get on their radar. We're one of the, I think we might be the only queer bookstore in the general area, like exclusively queer owned and really highlighting it. And we've been planning Pride events since February. Like, it's we're finalizing the event. I think we finalized it last month. So it's been like 2 months, but we were finalizing it well ahead than what our normal time frame is. So, but part of that was also reaching out to authors who've done events with us, who we've already been introduced with, and we know that they are, would be happy or are part of the queer community. And we're like, hey, do you want to join in and do this event with us in June? So it really depends. I would say best thing is to do it at least, preferably more than 4 weeks ahead of the event, to reach out. Don't do it before the 4 week mark. And then it really depends on the time of year. You have to just be aware of your area or the area that bookstore is in and what's going on during that. And also like what your book is bringing to that bookstore during that time of year. If you have a Christmas book, you want to go into the Christmas season, or, whatever. Just judge it based off of that, because depending on the bookstore, if they're like a really big place for insert holiday or events, they're probably planning that stuff out well in advance. But other parts of the year, like, we don't have much going on in May. We had people scheduling up to the last day of April, and usually that wouldn't fly, but because May is slower for our store, we were able to accommodate for that.
Thank you for explaining about consignment and about how far in advance, because those are just questions that I would have if I didn't really know very much about trying to contact indie bookstores. So what are some misconceptions or assumptions writers make about bookstores?
I've seen a lot of authors who think that no one will accept their books just because they're indie published. And I've also seen some authors who think everyone should accept their books, even though they're indie published. And so it is a fine balance of like, yes, indie authors do want to support, or indie bookstores, independently owned bookstores, do want to support indie authors, but not all of them will have your genre in stock, or that's their niche that they represent. Also, it will help if you go through a wide distributor. I do order my paperbacks through Amazon tax-free with a reseller's permit, and then sell them directly to local bookstores. But not all bookstores want to be purchasing directly from the author, especially since that requires me to either take a trip to that store or mail the books to the store. But When you're not there, though, the person selling your book is the minimum waging pawn. So be nice to them and offer a free reader's copy to the store. Corporation bookstores often receive demos or advanced reader's copies of books for booksellers, like the sales clerks, to read, because 50% of customers are just browsing, and 50% of those customers ask for suggestions. And I'm much more likely to suggest a book I've read. I'm much more likely to suggest a book I liked. And so, but if like I haven't read it, it's just something a local author has brought in, and it's on the shelf. I can't just kind of like leaf through it. I can a little bit if it's dead, but if the store is dead. But to actually be able to take it home with me and read it and share it with my coworkers and talk about it with my coworkers, that really increases the interest, our interest levels, and knowing what it's about. Also, corporations get marketing pages about products, including its blurb, a review, and a customer's need that it fills. Like, this book is great for someone who just graduated and doesn't know what to do with life. Or this book is great for somebody who just lost a parent or is struggling with their identity. Fill in the blank. You can make and share that in a return on investment page. I think there's another term for it, but make your own little marketing page to say, hey, this is what my book is about. This is who you can pitch it to.
Yeah, I agree that being nice, I would say, is like the biggest thing. I've encountered many an author, and the ones that stick with me the most, even if I haven't read their book, are the really kind authors, and particularly the ones that are like, oh, I don't know if you're gonna like my book or not, but I want to shoot my shot. Like, and they're so sweet, and they stick with me, and I definitely am like, even if I haven't read the book, if someone comes in and they're just like, I'm looking for a local author, I'll be like, hey, I met this author and they are so sweet. Like, they're so nice. And so even then, I'm able to kind of push a book just because, like, I remember that author and I remember how kind they were. Luckily, I haven't had many experiences with like stuck-up authors and ones who think that like the world owes them something. But the very few times I have, I'm like definitely less inclined to like promote that book. I'm just like, you can read it, sure. It's good, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, just being kind and patient, and it's I'm as an author, I'm flabbergasted whenever I walk into a bookstore and like the people who work there remember me, and it's just because I assume I try to be nice. And I'm just like, oh, hi friends, like you know me, and like that's so cool. Like, I feel like very appreciated. I'm just like, oh, just making my day.
Okay, so yeah, just lots of kindness will go a long way. So then how can authors collaborate with indie bookstores? So you were talking about events, and obviously authors are asking bookstores to carry their book, but like what kinds of collaborations can they do?
So, Rae mentioned this earlier of saying if you go to a bookstore and you're like, hey, I would like you to carry my book, to also ask for doing like a book event. And that is like A plus, like across the board. I think that is so essential. That's a really great way to get to know the bookstore staff, to establish yourself as a really cool and kind person, get them interested in your book. And like, then, they might be pushing it to sell it to people. But it also, gets you in the process of like, they get to see how you are as a person who is doing an event. Like, oh, they had a lot of really interesting things to say during their questions and answers at their book signing. Like, that is super cool. And at least for me, when I'm scheduling events, we created a book club for the store. And I reached out to authors we've had before because I was like, these people are really cool. Like, they did a phenomenal job. They have really interesting things to say. And I've reached out to them and I said, hey, would you guys like to do more with us? So at least in my small, realm, my little bookstore, we definitely take note of people who come in and they are interactive and they're doing a book signing and they decide, yeah, I'm going to do a discussion as well. Whether or not it draws a crowd. We had one author who came in and no one showed up for her discussion and signing, which is heartbreaking. However, she hung out with the staff and she talked about a bunch of stuff regarding writing and reading and all of this interesting stuff that we've now had her do 4 or 5 different events with us because she's just so good and amazing at these topics. And, she's gotten a lot, like, people have bought her books since then. So just because that one instance, it didn't go well, it doesn't mean that, like, that's the end of the road with the bookstore. It doesn't mean that's the end of the road with your career. The people ultimately that, like, you want to impress the staff, you want to impress the people who are there. So, like, whether or not it draws a crowd is not necessarily the big thing that you need it to be. So yeah, that's all I have to say. My brain just was like, nope, that's it.
And yeah, especially if there are local bookstores that kind of celebrate a specific topic or a specific niche, like, celebrate it with them. Independent Bookstore Day is a holiday. I think it was on April 25th this year. I think it's the last Saturday of every, I don't know, is it always on? Okay. The last Saturday of every April. Do a signing at that time. You support each other. It's indies supporting indies again. But you don't have to do just signings. You can do readings. You can do workshops. You can do discussions of some bookstores can be treated like libraries, basically, of like, we're just going to be here to do a book club. Also, you can, especially if you're buying your books yourself, and you're selling it to them and you at a discounted price, you can sell it to them at that discounted price and let them sell it discounted, so that, again, like, you can tell people, hey, go get it over there. It's cheaper than on Amazon. And that's a great way to push people not just to buy your book, but also to go to the local bookstore where they will likely buy more than just your book. Last thing I would say is promote them on social media. Anytime you stock your book at their location, take a picture of it on the shelves or even just on the table where you signed it. Also, yes, sign your books when you send them to locals. A lot of bookstores have stickers that say author signed or autographed, and that's a huge way to say, hey, look, this is not like, this is a fancy version. It's got an autograph in it, and people are more likely to buy that book because it's autographed. But yeah, when you stock their shelves with, or you send your books to, or leave your books with them, take a picture of it, post that on social media, and say, hey, come here, I just restocked them. Go get my books there.
Yeah, I actually will, as doing the social media for our store, whenever an author tags our store as being like, oh, I'm visiting, or oh, I signed books, I dropped off books, I will reshare that. Like, they asked to collaborate, I will accept. And it's a good way to promote the bookstore, but it's also a really great way for the author to be promoted, so that all the people who follow that bookstore are seeing you and they're seeing that you're interactive with the bookstore. And that is like candy, like, people are really excited about that type of thing. So interacting with their social media, promoting them on social media, it's always good. Even if it's just a share in stories or something like that, it is still promotion that you both are going to get.
What I've also seen amongst some of my author friends is that they also either work at indie bookstores. I have a few friends who have opened indie bookstores. So I thought we could turn the end of this discussion a little bit to actually being an author working for an indie bookstore, and just talk about that a bit. So when did you decide you wanted to work for an indie bookstore? It's a lifelong dream, or?
As a kid, I really wanted to work at an indie bookstore. I always wanted to be an author, but I was like, oh, I never had dreams that like I would make a living off of being an author. That was more of an adult dream, but as a kid, I was like, I want to be an author. And I just imagined working at like a little indie bookstore, like a classic, like the most vibey bookstore that you can picture. And all I could really do was I landed at Walden Books and Borders as in my early 20s. And they're long gone, but the bookstore I work at currently is owned by two author friends. They were like, we want to open a bookstore and we want to partake in our community. We want to bring something to our community. So they opened a bookstore, and I came upon them and was like, please let me help you with social media. Your social media page is killing me. So just because they were never updating it. I was like, please let me update it for you. So that's how I came upon this position. But honestly, it's a dream. Like I thought I was like, oh, this is gonna be great, like little like side hustle that I'm doing amongst all the other things I have going on in my life. But I genuinely am like the happiest I've been working this position and being a part of this bookstore. It truly is a dream come true. And I also have so much more respect for indie bookstore owners because I see just how tough it is and all the decisions that have to be made and the anger towards like big corporate and price hiking and all of these things. And just I see the struggle. I never want to own my own bookstore. But I am very, very happy and content to be a part of an indie bookstore. It truly is like a wonderful, gleaming thing. Today's our only day that's closed, and I'm like excited to go in tomorrow and do my work. Like I'm just like, yes, this is great. Like every day, who knew you could have a job where you're just like happy and giddy to go off to work each day.
So my very first job as a high schooler was working at not a corporate, but like a discounted version of a corporate bookstore. And I just really enjoyed it. I tried other jobs working in a grocery store, working in like an attic of the grocery store, and working like different ways. I did not enjoy those. I learned very quickly that I wanted to be able to work with people, even though I'm an introvert. and but I also was able to tour a publishing house. I got to tour the editor's office and see what his life was like, his work life was like. And I thought, wow, I would love to work with books. And I always wanted to be an author, kind of similar with Erica. I always wanted to be an author, but I thought that's not very realistic. Okay, I need a plan B. And so I did actually go get my bachelor's in English thinking I would become an editor, because I got to see that one editor's office and thought, wow, this looks amazing. And then I kind of got a spiritual back slap on the head of, what are you doing going for your plan B? Go for your plan A. So like, okay, fine, I'll try to be an author. Um, but in my bio, it was mentioned that I had 4 part-time jobs at one point. One of them actually paid me. The one that paid me was the working part-time at the bookstore because, again, writing wasn't really working. Ghost writing wasn't really working. Being an editor even wasn't really working. But books are my life. I love working with my little small, like, licensed dealer of a bookstore. I've been working there for over 10 years. I just absolutely love it. Had the opportunity to be manager and said, no, I don't want to deal with the people who aren't happy. And I don't want to be stuck in the office doing paperwork. I want to be able to be, behind the desk talking to people about books. And it's so much fun just talking about books and talking and helping people find the book that will be their next favorite book to read. And it's very fulfilling. And it's also just, your coworkers are also going to be great. They're fun. We're all nerds together. Like, I go to work on my birthday. I enjoy it.
Okay, so both of you seem to have either, somewhat fallen into your positions. Was it difficult to find then a position with an indie bookstore?
Not in my case. I think the most difficult part was because the owners are my friends. I was nervous. I take rejection very, very deeply, like emotionally. And I was like, oh, they might say no. And I don't like, that's totally understandable and logical if they don't want my help. But I know it's gonna hurt my heart really badly. So I think that was really nerve-wracking. I was super, super nervous to bring it up to them. But they simultaneously they had brought up individually, they're like, well, do you want to be a bookseller? And I was like, oh no, I don't want to talk to people. But I will happily make graphics and like email people. That I'm here for. So and it's worked out really wonderfully. But yeah, the initial conversation with them, I was just so nervous. Like that was what was hard, was just my crippling anxiety, which is something I deal with on the regular anyway, so it's not much different.
Yeah, it is kind of tricky with indie bookstores because they are usually smaller, and they have less traffic. They're not as busy, and they're not regularly hiring. Um, so it can be, kind of tricky to get into a position to work at an indie bookstore, especially also since they are indie, or it's an independently owned. They usually hire their friends or their family members. It's very close knit community usually. But the holidays get busy during the holidays, and a lot of times they will hire on seasonal work, and a lot of times they'll just keep you on. Supposing they like you and you're not going anywhere or something. So that's how I got into bookstores. I've worked at 3 bookstores, and all 3 of them I was hired on during the holidays, and they just kept me on afterwards. For the one I'm currently working at, the independently owned, or the licensed dealer, I had formerly worked for the company that they deal with. And they had just barely changed into a licensed dealer. So I was actually the one teaching them how to do returns because they were all new to the system. So that's how I got on. But knowing somebody, being a friend of a friend, really helps. And yeah, holiday season, 4th quarter, October. Yeah, put in your resumes. August, September time-ish.
Yeah. Get on their radar early.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, if my book is ever stocked in my store, I might have to quit because I don't know if I'd be able to handle people walking up to my book and I'm just sitting there watching as a sales clerk, and they pick up my book and they read the back of it maybe, and then they put it back down. I don't know if I could handle that personally.
My book is at my store, and I can't handle it.
That happens all the time at events. Like when I'm going to be a sales clerk, if my books ever do become in my or in the store where I work, I might have to go volunteer at a library or somewhere else.
Yeah, I can't handle it. It's my book does really well at the bookstore with no help from me. I ignore it. It doesn't exist. I make no eye contact with people. If I see them even near the fantasy section, I'm just like, nope, I'm not here. You're not looking at my book. And yet it's done really, really well. Like it's sold very well. And that is definitely because of the people that work at the store, and they push it. And that like that's it's all them. It's not me at all, because I'm just like, no, I will never self-promote my own book. And often it's the owners or whoever that's like, no, it was the bestseller. You need to promote it. And I'm like, okay, I guess.
Okay, then. Well, that was a really wonderful conversation about learning how to talk to indie bookstores as an author, supporting them as a reader, and then if you're interested in working at an indie bookstore, some ways to go about achieving that. So, Erica and C-Ray, what I want to know is what would you like Write Hive attendees and later listeners to walk away with from this panel?
Your books are worthy of being in a bookstore. You can, what is the saying? Like, you can get more flies with honey. Is that the saying? Definitely keep that in mind. And really, it might be a little bit scary approaching bookstores with your book, but know that bookstores really do genuinely, like, they want to support you. And they genuinely want to see you succeed. Whether or not they are able to accept your book at that time, it doesn't mean that they will be unable to accept it in the future. So just keep that in mind. Show your love to indie bookstores. It will likely be reciprocated.
Yeah, indies support indies. Locals support locals. It's a wonderful community if you're a part of it.
Merch moment!
Yeah, okay. I was wondering, would you like me to show off the merch that they can get?
All right, well then let the Write Hive attendees know where else can we find you and what other Write Hive panels can we see you at?
This is my one and only panel. It's my first panel with Rae Hive, so it's been great. It's had so much fun. You can find me just about anywhere online with the username Erica Rose Eberhart, and that is also my website name. If you can't find it, I'm not on that site. So just find me anywhere. I'm mainly on Instagram.
And I will also be in Pro Secrets for book signings. So kind of once you have your book in a store, you can listen to my other panel talking about book signings and how to make it a successful one. And then you can find me online on Facebook or Instagram. I also have my website, craedarc.com, where you can see my books.
And thank everyone for attending and have a great con.